Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a trip down memory lane to explore the world of America's luxury automobiles of the 1950s. This was an era defined by extravagant design, new technologies, increasingly powerful engines, bright colors, and a nation's renewed appetite for luxury. From sleek and sporty convertibles to stately sedans and limousines, these cars not only reflected the booming economy, but also the evolving taste of a nation captivated by the open road. Join us as we discover some of the most expensive American cars of the 1950s. We'll delve into some of the most iconic models from the likes of Lincoln, Cadillac, and more, showcasing what made these vehicles stand out in a decade filled with innovation and style. Each vehicle here is absolutely deserving of, and will eventually get a video of its own. It also probably goes without saying that we sell factory-correct interiors for every car on this list. And if you enjoy the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and leave a comment. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get started. Before we get into the first car on our list, it's good to keep in mind how much a typical car cost in the 1950s. And when someone thinks of a typical 50s car, they are often thinking of a Tri-5 Chevy. So to put the prices of these cars on our list into context, it's good to know that the 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air four-door sedan cost about $2,390 when new. Adjusted for inflation, that's right at $27,000, which is roughly the same price as a Malibu, Camry, or Accord today. And now we can get to the first car on our list. First up, we have the 1953 through 1956 Packard Caribbean convertible. Prices range from $5,210 to $6,100, depending on the year. This equates to between $61,525 and $71,500 in late 2024 money. Telling the story of Packard's troubles and ever-changing model lineup in the 1950s would take up an entire video of its own, so we're just going to touch on the basics. By the early 50s, Packard was in trouble and resorted to basically throwing things at a wall to see if anything would stick. In 1953, Packard introduced the Caribbean convertible to compete with the likes of Cadillac's new Eldorado. It was a bold statement in luxury and design and an attempt to recapture some of the glory of the once prestigious Packard brand. With its sleek lines, eye-catching chrome accents, and lavish interiors, the Caribbean was more modern and sporty in appearance than typical Packards. Inside, the car featured high-quality leather upholstery and a stylish dashboard. As the 1950s progressed, Packard faced significant challenges, including declining sales and mounting financial difficulties. The Caribbean represented one of the brand's last-ditch efforts to create something truly unique and luxurious in a crowded field dominated by Cadillac and Lincoln. The 1953 model was a variant of the upper mid-range Cavalier. The Caribbean included as standard most features that were optional in other models, such as heater and defroster, power windows, power front seat, power steering. Options included a $199 automatic transmission, signal-seeking radio, and tinted glass. 750 units were sold in 1953. In 1954, the Caribbean was elevated to senior Packard status, being based on the Pacific hardtop, and the price increased nearly $1,000 to $6,100. This would be the most expensive model year for the Caribbean. The engine was upgraded from 327 cubic inches and 185 horsepower to 359 cubic inches and 212 horsepower. An additional 400 units were sold in 54. 55 was completely restyled, along with the other senior Packards, with a new modern, late 50s look. In addition, the 55 included Packard's new overhead valve V8 engine, torsion-level suspension, and slightly lowered price. It also had the option of two-tone or tri-tone paint schemes. Sales rose to 500 units. For its final model year, the Caribbean became its own series and added a two-door hardtop. Other notable changes for 56 included unique reversible seat cushions, with cloth on one side and leather on the other. Yep, you heard that right. It also featured a new push-button automatic transmission, 12-volt electrical system, electric power door locks, and another engine upgrade to 310 horsepower. However, only 263 hardtops and 276 convertibles were sold as Packard's fortunes continued to slide. Caribbean was an attempt to revive Packard's reputation for excellence and innovation, but despite its stunning design and features, the model couldn't save the company. The Caribbean became emblematic of Packard's struggles, a beautiful yet bittersweet reminder of a great past. At least Packard went out in style. Next up, we have the 1953 Cadillac Series 62 Eldorado convertible. In stark contrast with the demise of Packard, Cadillac was flying high in the 1950s, and for 1953 introduced a convertible that was at a whole other level than the Packard Caribbean. 1953 marked the first use of the Eldorado name on a Cadillac production car, a name it would use into the 2000s. While the Eldorado was a Series 62 and based on the Series 62 convertible, it cost nearly 75% more. Coming in at $7,750, the Eldorado costs the equivalent of nearly $92,000 today. Compared to the Series 62, the Eldorado came standard with nearly every available option, including automatic transmission, power steering, signal-seeking radio, power windows, and windshield washers. It featured modified bodywork compared to the 62, and a notable dip in the doors, a wraparound windshield, and body color tonneau cover for the power soft top. Wire wheels and a unique leather-upholstered interior rounded out what made the Eldorado stand out. Air conditioning was a pricey $620 option. A couple fun facts worth noting. The Eldorado came only in 4 single-tone paint colors. No 2- or tri-tone paint jobs here. Also, when President Eisenhower rode in his inaugural parade on January 20th, 1953, he rode in an Eldorado. The 1953 Eldorado is a rare car with only 532 produced, compared to over 8,000 Series 62 convertibles. Third on our list, we have the 1956 and 1957 Continental Mark II. Starting at $9,966, with the only option being a $595 air conditioner, the Continental Mark II was an ultra-luxury coupe that cost the equivalent of $117,000 in 2024 money. Launched in 1956, this luxury coupe was designed as a successor to the 39 through 48 Lincoln Continental, and was intended to compete with the finest European models from the likes of Rolls-Royce and Bentley, and it did so with stunning elegance. In a major departure from most American cars of the time, the Mark II featured clean, classic styling, instead of the jet-age styling that was becoming all the rage in the 50s. Unlike most other cars of its time, but similarly to the next car on our list, the Mark II was primarily hand-assembled, with each vehicle receiving meticulous attention to detail before leaving the factory. Ford touted the fact that for Mark II, it had adopted the most stringent quality control program of any American manufacturer. As expected, the Continental Mark II had an extensive list of standard equipment, with power steering, power brakes, power windows, power seats, power vent windows, and full instrumentation, including attack and low fuel warning. Mark II was offered with 19 standard exterior color options and 43 interior design schemes, featuring leather, wool broadcloth, and jacquard nylon fabrics. In a break from other luxury products offered by competitors, 2-tone paint options were not available, other than 5 paint options that featured a contrasting roof. The Mark II was initially planned as an entire range, with a 4-door hardtop sedan and retractable hardtop convertible to join later. While those variants never saw the light of day, the retractable hardtop did make it to production on the Ford Fairlane 500. We did an entire video on that car, and we'll link to it. Despite the high price, a total of 3,005 Mark IIs were produced during its 2-year run. However, Ford lost money on every unit it made. Nonetheless, Ford achieved its goal of creating a halo car for the company, and 70 years later, the Continental Mark II remains an enduring icon of design and luxury. Second from last, we have the 1957 through 1959 Crown Imperial Ghia Limousine. At roughly $12,000 in 1957, up to $16,000 in 1959, that equates to between $134,500 and $173,000 in 2024 money. By 1956, Chrysler was the only manufacturer still competing with Cadillac in the limousine market. But with Cadillac having over 90% market share in the limousine space, Chrysler couldn't justify the expense of producing its next-generation limousine in-house. However, Chrysler had a plan. Imperial was ready to go toe-to-toe with Cadillac, and nothing said status more than contracting with Italian coach building and design firm Ghia to build the luxurious Crown limousine. It was cheaper to have Ghia modify two-door hardtop Imperials and handcraft each limousine in Italy than for Chrysler to pay for the tooling and labor in the United States. Marketed as the supreme expression of the forward look, the Crown Imperial limousine featured a 149.5-inch wheelbase and an overall length of 244.7 inches. The 1957 Imperials benefited from Virgil Exner's updated forward-look styling and, finally, a dedicated chassis and body that were unrelated to any Chrysler product. Styling, as for all 1957 Imperials, was distinctive. Doors extended into the roof, not only as a unique styling touch, but to allow more headroom when entering and exiting the vehicle. However, the styling feature that probably stood out the most was the large leather canopy, or crown, that extended over the rear of the roof. Remember, 1957 was a time well before vinyl tops had become an overused styling cliché on American cars. The limousine was decked out with luxurious broadcloths, leathers, woods, and metal accents. There were 5 interior styles and 4 exterior colors available, with black, maroon, dark green, and dark blue, nearly 98% of which were painted black. Luxury features included all of the standard Imperial goodies, such as power everything and separate radios and air conditioners for the driver and passenger compartments. To ensure exclusivity, the limousine was available only in limited quantities and by custom order, with manufacture and delivery taking approximately 6 months. Customers were a who's who of political and business leaders, with even Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip riding in a modified bubble-top version during their tour of Canada in 1959. And now, that takes us to the most expensive American car of the 1950s. Coming in at number 1, we have the 1957 and 1958 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham. Not to be outdone by Ford's Continental Mark II, GM retaliated in a major way, releasing the 4-door hardtop Cadillac 70 Series Eldorado Brougham for 1957. Taking over the title as the most expensive American car, the price started at $13,074, roughly twice the price of a regular Eldorado. That equates to $150,000 in today's money. In 1957, a Rolls-Royce only cost $13,000 and the average home cost $12,200. The Eldorado Brougham was a limited edition, hand-built luxury sedan with a range of technology and luxury features. The cars were driven by celebrities like Bob Hope, John Wayne, and Aristotle Onassis. Despite a price that was astronomical for the time, Cadillac, like Ford with the Continental, reportedly lost a significant amount of money on every Eldorado Brougham sold. But this was an image and prestige car intended to show off the very best that Cadillac had to offer as the standard of the world. And it truly did offer the very best. Features included rear-hinged coach or suicide doors, an unpainted stainless steel roof long before any DeLorean or Cybertruck came out of the scene, additional chrome trim, and standard quad headlights that were still apparently illegal in much of the U.S. at the time. It even included a self-leveling air suspension, cruise control, transistor radio, automatic parking brake, power windows and locks, a power trunk release, air conditioning, automatic headlight dimming, and 6-way power memory seats. As for the interior, remember how Continental Mark II had 43 interior options? Well, Eldorado Brougham had 44 cloth and leather interior options. No joke, GM was very clear about its intentions to literally one-up Ford. Similar to the Dodge LaFemme that we did an earlier video on, Eldorado Brougham came with accessories as well, including a notepad and pencil, portable vanity mirror, and perfume bottle. The glove compartment even had a cigarette case, tissue dispenser, vanity compact, cologne, and 6 magnetized metal drinking cups. Being such an exclusive car, only 400 Eldorado Broughams were built in 1957, with another 304 following in 1958, and a final 99 in 1959. Starting at around $340,000, you could say that the 2024 Cadillac Celestiq is the spiritual successor to the Eldorado Brougham. Exclusive, hand-built for each owner, and representing the absolute pinnacle of GM technology and luxury. It'll be interesting to see if it achieves the same classic status in the future as the Eldorado Brougham did. From the numbers we've seen here, luxury cars have gotten a lot more expensive over the last 70 years when adjusted for inflation. Limited volume, handcrafted ultra-luxury cars were costing $150,000 or less, and that would be considered a downright bargain by today's standards. In the 1950s, it was only these limited edition and hand-built models that cracked the inflation-adjusted $100,000 mark. For 2025, half-ton pickups can cross the $90,000 mark, and mass-produced luxury brands blow right through $100K with no problem. Heck, the Lincoln Navigator now starts at over $100,000, and Cadillac's Escalade starts at just under the $100,000 mark, and both jump rapidly in price from there with options. So what do you think? Were the 1950s a better time to be a luxury car buyer, or do you prefer things as they are now? Leave a comment and let us know your thoughts. And please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.